Okay, awesome. So, yeah, I am Patrick, and I'm with Transmissions from the Campfire. I'm also an author, and I'm here with Stephen Graham Jones, author of the Indian Lake trilogy. And just had a couple of questions for you.
Let's do it.
So, first one I have, if you had to estimate, just raw estimate, how many of these conventions would you say you've done at this point?
Oh, the estimate? Oh, 300, 350. Yeah. At least. So I've been doing this. I've been going to conventions pretty hard and fast since 2008. So probably, in 15 or 20 a year, all that adds up.
Ooh, man. That's so every month almost you got.
Oh, yeah.
Convention.
At least every month, yeah.
Oh, okay.
At least one.
And what, if any, is your favorite part of said conventions?
My favorite part of the convention? That's a good question. I like the panels, I guess. I like how we get to have like more or less the same discussions, like favorite monster or whatever, whatever the standard.
Yeah.
But you're with a new group of people and a new audience who has different questions, and so you go different ways. And that's really fun.
Right, pouring over the genre.
Yeah.
Something that anybody who loves the genre would want to do.
Yeah.
What's the strangest thing anybody's ever asked you to sign?
Yeah, basketball. Recently, somebody brought a brand new shiny basketball. They were big fans of it all again. Yeah, they signed that ball.
Right, because you golf.
I used to. I don't anymore. I've got too many surgeries and injuries. But no, I love basketball forever and ever. But yeah, that was cool. I like signing that basketball. And I signed, a lot of Kindles. I always feel bad signing Kindles because it's so permanent.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what it's not on the screen.
No, yeah, on the back, yeah. It's not a lot of bags. A lot of tote bags.
So you find that connects with your work doing the basketball and having it in your work.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question because I just recently listened to the Night Cyclist.
Yeah.
And it seems like you might be a cyclist, or you might have enjoyed riding a bike extensively in your life. Just from how it's drawn, there's a characterization of the way that you describe riding at night, and that just the way that your muscles burn and everything that doesn't sound like it was researched so much as experienced.
Yeah, I'll be out on the trails this afternoon. I'm always riding. Until I moved up here to Colorado in 2008, I had not ridden a bike until 12 years old probably. But I moved up here, and the guy we bought a house from was an avid cyclist, and he said, "You gotta get a bicycle." And so I went out that day and bought a bicycle, and he took me up the trails. I've been doing it since 2008.
So nice. So with the Indian Lake trilogy, you pretty much put your stamp on the slasher genre. G. Daniels is regarded by many as this generation's JLC or Sidney Prescott. And some people online are even opining that it's the greatest slasher trilogy that's ever been put down on print, right? So with that said, do you have any insights as to why, I try to think of this in the context of a writer, do you have any insights as to why it worked out so well? Of course, you're informed by the genre. You're obviously no novice at this. That said, do you think there's something about the way that you wrote it that really kind of grounded it, kept it all coherent? And because it's hard enough to make a narrative work over one book, making it work over three. You know what I mean? That's a razor dance.
It is. You're right. It is a good way to say it. I think what I lucked into with Fires of Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper and Angel of Indian Lake is that I never planned to write a trilogy, and therefore, after the first book made whatever splash it made, and the publisher said, like, do another one, until that moment, I thought it was over, And I think, like, go back to 1980 with Friday the 13th. They didn't expect to make a second Friday the 13th. And then they suddenly have a whole franchise opening up, and Halloween as well. Like most of the slasher things they're gambles. If this lands, if it explodes, then we'll open it up and do a series, do a franchise. And so that's how it was for me. And what that meant was I didn't save anything back. I gave it all away with every book because I thought this is the third end.
All right. Well, that said, I also wanted to see what's your, out of all the slasher series out there, what's your one? Are you a Friday guy, Nightmare dude, a Halloween misanthrope?
Oh man, I love them all. If I had to choose a favorite series, probably Friday the 13th, I think. Yeah. But I think the series that's held together the best, that has like kept on the tracks the best with no real outliers, no crashes, is probably, for me, Final Destination.
Final Destination. That's one I hadn't quite considered. Yeah. Or I'm just glad you didn't say Halloween. I think that Halloween is the greatest slasher film ever made. That said, I think it's probably the worst slasher series because it's such a peak and trough kind of scenario over and over. You just want to break your heart, like you see now.
Yeah. But I mean, there's people who love the Thorn Society and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I actually, that part I actually have a soft spot for number 6 because it was one of the first horror movies I snuck into when I was a teenager. So it was like, it didn't matter what was happening. It was great no matter what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I've thought about this.
Yeah.
What's your favorite slasher? I'm gonna put it in the 80s because I don't think it's fair to ask you 70s, 80s, and not that's. And also, I know your answer is going to be straight. So leaving out the 90s and the 70s, 80s. What do you think is your favorite slasher out of the 80s?
From the 80s, probably. Awesome. All right. I'm gonna say Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, it's just, I feel so bad not saying any of Fridays, but I think Nightmare on Elm Street was so new for none of us were expecting it. You know?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's hard to beat Nancy. She's pretty much she's right up there with any of the final.
Well, what I love about Nancy is she uses her mind. Like the slasher formula or dynamic always wants to reduce this to a battle of muscles. We could swing machete the hardest, but Nancy uses her thinking to win big, and I really respect that a lot.
Yeah. And I definitely respect it more than like with, the people cite JLC, but if you're a slasher fan and you watch all of Jamie Lee, whether it's Terror Train or Halloween 2, she is perpetually being saved by other people. I always tell people, Dr. Loomis is the final girl of the first 2 Halloween films, not JLC. Like he's the one who comes in, he's putting together the mystery the whole time. He's putting, the way that Sidney Prescott functions in Scream is the way that Dr. Loomis functions in the first 2 Halloween. So let's see. So Texas is obviously the recurring locale in your work. I write a lot in Colorado. You write a lot in Texas. And Kevin Kline's character in Orange County actually put it really great when he said that all great writers have this conflicted relationship with where they grow up. And he cites Tolstoy and Joyce and, also Faulkner. But do you feel that conflict exists with you with Texas and that maybe you deride some of your inspiration from that? Because I mean, is it all love? It's just like, oh man, my heart's in Texas. Yeah. Deep in the heart of Texas, or is it conflicted as well?
I think it is conflicted. And, Thomas Pynchon says a similar thing. He says everyone has a certain nostalgia for the decade we grew up in, and I mean, sometimes your home is a decade, sometimes it's a region, and for me, I mean, it's probably both the 80s and Texas, but every book I write, I can write a book set on Mars in 2782, and if I stop long enough to pull up that red dirt landscape, it's going to be West Texas underneath, because I really feel like as writers, we probably only ever can know the emotional contours of a single landscape, and for me, it's Texas. And I'll never be able to escape that. I've written Colorado stories like the Ice Cyclist you mentioned, and some more, but still, Texas feels the most natural to me. I wrote a lot of stories set in Montana as well. The Indian Lake trilogy is Idaho, but Texas is where I always come back to. I can't escape it. I don't know if I'll ever live back. I don't think I'll ever live in Texas again either. Number one, because when you get to Colorado, why be anywhere else?
Right. I can feel that. Yeah.
But number 2, Texas is a complicated place politically.
Lending to that also, I was just wondering, when you go to Texas conventions, do you find that the people that you speak to who are native to the state have an even deeper connection as a result of that?
I do. Like when I came through Texas for Teenage Slasher, there were a lot of people who came out to see me who know La Mesa, and they were like, I can't believe you're putting this place I know on the page. Like they never expected to see a little farming oil town be the center or the setting for a over-the-top slasher, So, and there's just all kinds of little, like with every place, Texas is not unique in that it has its own peculiarities, but when you get those peculiarities on the page, it's almost like you're speaking in code to people who grew up with those same peculiarities.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. Here's a one that I thought, because I've heard you expound in interviews on the effect of what your initial employment prospects were. The whole idea of being a farmer. how much your students have played into your work, how much your cultural influences, being a part of indigenous horror and everything has influenced your work. However, one thing I was wondering is, how does having a BA in philosophy affect your work in your best estimation?
Yeah, let's see. Nobody asked me that. Thank you. I think what it is what I learned in philosophy was to rigorously run down and challenge ideas, preconceptions, and also to build arguments. And a narrative in a novel, a story, or whatever you're writing is basically an argument. You're selecting this, not that, and that as premises that lead to a conclusion. That conclusion is the feeling that gets scratched open at the end, or the thought that gets scratched open. And so what I learned from philosophy, I still use in everything I write, because I am constructing arguments. I am testing the boundaries of this and that. And also I'm logically extending premises to see if it's ridiculous or if it holds water, you know?
Yeah, no, I love it. It's this one's for fellow writers. Do you listen to music or have anything on in the background while you're writing, or do you find that to be distracting and inhibiting?
I mean, I don't know if I wanted to say I have to, but I've kind of conditioned myself such that for every novel, I kick up a new playlist and only listen to the playlist from song one in that order when I'm writing that novel, or I listen to it on the bike, in the car, anywhere else. And what that does is it, for the duration of that novel, every time I hear the opening bars of whatever song is the first on the playlist, I'm immediately parachuted down into the emotional landscape of this novel. I don't have to do a warm-up period, about 15 minutes trying to reacclimate myself. And it has worked wonderfully for me, and music's not hard to have wherever. If I'm on a train, if I'm in a hotel lobby, I can always have my music. I can always write. So, I mean, maybe I could write that music. I guess I've tried for years and years and years. But the way I use the music, though, is I try to let it occupy the critical part of my mind so that I can move forward. Otherwise, I'm second guessing myself. Like, is that stupid? Are they going to buy this? Like, you can't think those things when you're writing. You have to go back and revise and make everything make sense. But the first time through, if you stop to think, then I think everything falls apart.
Yeah, and that's great, actually. I do a similar thing where I'm listening to music and I use it to amp me up. But that's a good idea to go back and use it as an anchor point, because that's like just a constant drop in. That's definitely.
But it has to be music I know really, really well, like Meatloaf or Journey or Bob Seger or Waylon Jennings. Like if it's new music, if it's a new AWOL Nation album or something, then I'm just going to sit there and listen to it. I'm like, right, you know?
That's, I tend to use lyricless music. Pretty soon I'm hearing the lyrics in my head and I'm completing the verses before they're even coming, and
Yeah. Well, I find that when I go back and look at my stuff, I can sometimes tell what song I was listening to when I wrote this section, because there'll be little words from that song smuggled in, you know?
Right. That's awesome. And so just to wrap up, because I'm sure you got things to do, not least of which is, but the last thing I was going to ask is, in the last year or two, maybe 2 years, because honestly, it's an interesting landscape right now. The movies, the books, has there been any movie that has really blown your hair back? I mean, I'm actually a film student. That's why I keep coming back to the movies, because a lot of it's drawn back to the film. Is there any movie or even book that in the last 2 years has just set you back, man? Just throwing you for a loop.
You know, the one that, if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, it would have been Cabin in the Woods, but that's too old now. So,
dude, yes.
I'm going to say Happy Death Day just blew my mind. Groundhog Day with the slasher.
Right,
How can that not be beautiful? And how did nobody ever think of that?
I was actually surprised that it worked. Just hearing the central conceit, I was like, that could really just be a hacky, kind of concept.
Yeah.
No, they stuck the landing on it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Man. This was great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're cool. Exactly what I found out they are. So,
They've always been.